Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Okay, guys, well, this feels like it's 3 or 4 videos in one, probably, but I'm going to try to go through everything here in one sitting because sometimes I feel it's so good to piece things together. Like if we just look at one thing, we're thinking about that one thing, and we might not think about some other things that are tied to it, so we could see the bigger picture.
Tying things together is giving us an understanding of the big puzzle picture. So the more pieces we can fit into this puzzle in a bigger spot, the bigger picture we're going to be able to see.
Please do subscribe both channels, EEARTS and over on Evolutionary. And if you haven't seen this one yet, do check it out. It's so important in these times for us to be at tip-top health because, man, are we going on one heck of a ride. And, you know, this ride is just getting started. So we need to be as strong and as prepared as possible. And, you know, for us, what does that look like? Well, you know, we've already done almost a full day's worth of things by 11 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, we get up early and we get busy and we make the videos and do our mantras, meditation. We're pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, and we do see a lot of people for energy work, sound healing, as well as Vedic charts as well to discover our purpose in life in this particular incarnation. So what I want to share right now is something I only shared with Cindy like about 4 or 5 days ago now. I had a very, very curious, vivid dream/vision, and I say dream/vision because typically I get these things when we're not quite out of bed, and yet I'm not back to sleep. So, you know, the dogs make a lot of noise. Sometimes they'll go out at 5 a.m. and then they'll want a little treat. And then we try to get another hour's worth of sleep in to get up about 6-ish or so, but often we can't. So I'll just do mantras or mentally do mantras. And so what I was seeing, well, Cindy and I were in Alaska. And, you know, that's kind of odd because neither one of us is super drawn to the cold. Although lately I've been getting visions of colder places and us on the road. And I do feel there is I think a road trip is beckoning for us again. I'm feeling that. And yes, I am a gypsy by heart. It's hard for me to sit still. It's really hard for me to sit still. And we really haven't moved hardly at all and gone anywhere outside of maybe a 20-mile radius for over a year. And that drives me crazy. But I keep getting these impressions. And we were up in Alaska. And it was different. We were no longer in control of Alaska. So that means the U.S. was no longer in control of Alaska. Actually, Russia was in control of Alaska. And it was like there wasn't any battles going on. That was all past. And I almost get the feeling there really wasn't any battles wherever we were. But people were trying to be made to get used to the fact that it was Russian territory now. And they were generally agreeable to an extent. It wasn't brutal. It wasn't harsh. It was more like, go ahead, go about, do your things, just, at the same time you're going to be seeing, guys posted here and there with automatic weapons and just have to kind of get used to it.
Yeah, I mean, just sort of kind of getting you ready for that new standard way of living.
And so the first time I had any of these type of things was back in 1984. And in that, I saw basically coming in out of the Pacific Northwest, the U.S. being invaded. It felt like it was Russian troops there. It felt that Florida was going to be invaded by a mix of different troops, including a lot from Latin America. And I was feeling they were coming over from Cuba. They were going into the Everglades. Every so often, every few years, I would get the same things coming through with a little bit more details. And in Florida, I felt like they were dropping, also repelling downward from helicopters and the like. And then also there was an incursion over through the southern border. Now, the reason why I bring this up now is because I was just hit before we were making this video with the impression to go and check out this man. And it just, somebody whispered his name. And so, I just pulled it up. And this man was known for his dowsing. He actually predicted his own death. And I don't feel that he was a bad guy at all. His name was Alois Irlmaiers. And he predicted basically what, when he was asked about this, he said, well, I guess you could call it World War III. So I'll read you a little bit about his prophecy. So this is from Message to Eagle. Whether you believe in prophecies or not, and again, let me just say that there are possible timelines. So the timeline that he saw back during his life, and again, he lived from 1894 to 1959, is more than likely changed in some way, shape, or form, because they're always changing.
They are always changing. And when I took a look at this guy, the first thing that was brought to me is that he's a holy man. And you might not think that just by looking at him, but he had an incredible amount of energy and abilities that really I kind of put it akin to someone like Nostradamus, his channeling abilities. And he had this ability to look into his hand and read different timelines into his hand. I think it was more of a focus thing, but he could see the external strings of energy and then point them out. And he was just very, very, very good at it. For him, it was more like reading a book.
And I never had a negative impression of him, and I don't think Cindy got a negative.
No, what I got though is he's not really what people might expect, and he could get confused. So that's the negativity that I felt coming in, is people did not understand him, and based upon that, he frightened people.
So he was a German dowser and a professional well digger. He was also a clairvoyant. During the Second World War, he successfully predicted the locations of bomb strikes and also the whereabouts of several missing persons. His unusual abilities made him rather famous, and he later helped in the investigations of various crimes. Now, fame does come with a price tag. He made a few enemies, was later ridiculed and accused of being a warlock. Now, this is what the dark side does. The dark side calls out the light as being dark. And, again, we've talked about, who is really in power here on this world. It's the adversary. And so the adversary is rewriting history all the time, which we're going to see in this video too. I want to touch on current events as well as looking back at the end at some things that just don't make sense from a historical perspective. And so things like this, like dowsing, cavorting with spirits. Well, the rulers of this world truly cavort with what we truly can say are demonic forces every single day. They don't want you talking to the beings that can help you. That's the bottom line. So they create that fear. They're in charge of the mainstream news. They're in charge of the mainstream religions, as well as politics and the politicians and the science and the medicine. They're in charge of all this. So, of course, if he's going to be legit, they're going to make him look out like he's a charlatan. So, things changed after he appeared in court and charges were dismissed. He was able to prove he was not a charlatan. He told the judge exactly what clothes the judge's wife was wearing on that day and what she was doing. Even though he had never seen her, he proved to be completely correct. And the judge released him. The future appeared to him as a movie, with only numbers appearing veiled, coded, or incomplete. He predicted his own death in July of 1959. His last words were, "I'm glad that I can go now because I won't have to experience what I see." As for his prophecy about World War III, he said the war will begin in the Middle East. Everything calls peace, shalom, then it will occur. A new Middle Eastern war suddenly flares up, big naval forces facing hostility in the Mediterranean, situation strained, but the actual firing spark is set on fire in the Balkans. I see a large one falling. A bloody dagger lies beside him. The impact is on impact. Then impact is on impact. 2 men kill a third high ranking. They were paid by other people. One of the murderers is a small black man, the other a little bit taller with bright colored hair. I think it will be the Balkans, but I cannot say for sure exactly. Immediately the revenge comes from across the large water. Boy, that sounds a lot like Nostradamus. Doesn't it?
Yeah, and I haven't read any of this yet, but look at this is amazing.
When the Golden City is destroyed, it begins. However, the Yellow Dragon invades in Alaska and Canada at the same time. But he comes not far, and then it rains a yellow dust in a line. The great city of the United States will be destroyed by rockets, and the West Coast will be invaded by Asians. But they will be beaten back. He also added, the Third World War will come, but I cannot predict the year. It will be preceded by signs in the skies, which will be seen by millions of people. War will begin on a rainy night shortly before the harvest time, when the ears are full. So there's another one with some more details in it over here as well. It's interesting to see this. Now I see the earth like a ball before me, on which the lines of airplanes step out, so their flight paths, which do now fly up like swarms of white pigeons from the sand. The Russian does not stop anywhere while running in his 3 wedges. Day and night they run in order to reach the Ruhr district, where the many furnaces and fireplaces are. The second spear comes westward over Saxonia towards the Ruhr district, exactly like the third, which goes from northeast westward over Berlin. Day and night the Russians run inexorably. Their target is the Ruhr district. Immediately, revenge comes across the large water. However, the Yellow Dragon invades Alaska and Canada at the same time, and that's going into what we were just talking about there too. So the airplanes drop a powder between the Black Sea and the North Sea. Thus, a death strip is created, straight from the Black Sea to the North Sea, as wide as half of Bavaria. In this zone, no more grass can grow, let alone humans live. The Russian supply is interrupted. Swarms of pigeons ascend from the sand. 2 herds achieve the combat area from the west to the southwest. The squadrons turn towards the north and cut off the course of the Third Army. From the east, there are many caterpillars, but in the caterpillars, everybody is already dead, although the vehicles keep rolling on in order to gradually stop automatic. Here, the pilots also throw off their small black boxes. They do explode before they touch the soil and spread a yellow or green smoke or dust. What comes in contact with this becomes dead, whether it's human, animal, or plant. For 1 year, no organism is allowed to enter the area, otherwise it will expose itself to the largest mortal danger. At the Rhine, the attack is finally repelled. From the 3 spearheads, no soldier will come home anymore. These boxes are satanic. When they explode, a yellow and green dust or smoke arises. Everything that comes in contact with it is dead, human, animal, or plant. The humans become quite black, and the meat falls off their bones. So sharp is the poison. By a natural catastrophe or something similar, the Russians suddenly evade to the north around Cologne. The last battle has started. At the Rhine, I see a half moon which wants to devour everything. The horns of the sickle want to close. Pretty dark, pretty ominous.
Yeah, I mean, you could see why this is somebody who could easily be misunderstood. And no, this is not popular stuff to talk about. But when you're a seer and you see something, you're supposed to tell people. It's part of being a seer.
Well, part of it is like, hey, this is something that could happen if we're not changing what is currently happening. Then it doesn't look good. So we need to do everything we can to change this possible outcome.
Well, I find that there is a difference between speaking something into existence and also speaking something so that it does not come into existence.
Very well said. Voters stick to pandemic area habits as early turnout surges. So to me, I felt that 2022 midterms is all about lighting the fires that lead to 2024 being fully enveloping what's our current country of the USA, as this is all about. And back when 45 was coming in, when 45 went to go against HRC, it was very ominous to me because, again, I've shared, I felt that if HRC got into power, that we already would have had this war started. Yet at the same time, it meant there was a different path, and that path is going to be tough too, because that path led to the breakdown of the USA and, that Civil War #2 scenario to come, and the unrest that's going to envelop the U.S. So here they're talking about the early turnout. It's up a lot. The amount of votes coming in through the first 5 days of early voting in Georgia, in-person turnout's up 70% compared to the turnout in the 2018 midterms. In North Carolina, absentee ballot requests are up 114% compared to requests in 2018. And in Florida, the total early vote is up 50%, again, compared to 18. And Florida, obviously, is still a lot of cleanup going on after the devastation of the hurricane. So here we see tensions high after armed individuals reportedly watch a ballot box in Mesa, Arizona. I do love Arizona. I have a favorable feeling of Arizona, and we spent a good deal of time there. And we have a lot of beautiful family members there. But I do think also there's going to be a lot of tension. It is a quote-unquote purple state. The purple states can be the states where we see a lot of conflict. I would put Florida in there, obviously, as well. Although, how purple it is, we'll see. And again, what we see and what they tell us is not always what really was. We could just look to our history, and our history has changed. This is all part of what we have going on. Here you can see a photo of, two individuals, one sitting on the tailgate. They're just watching the drop box, and they're armed. And this is another video. Now here they're calling it voter intimidation. We've seen a lot of stuff. Now, again, they'll say there is no proof of this, no proof of that. But man, I've sure witnessed a lot of things that look like they are PROOF, and I'm sure you guys have too. And this is from MSN talking about all this. So this is just a taste of what's to come. And this is all part of the script.
It is, and of course they're going to use this timeline to create a much bigger problem than there needs to be.
And here we have a Russian official warning of uncontrolled escalation in the Ukrainian conflict. Yeah, tell us something we don't know. However, Iran is conducting massive military drills on the Azerbaijan border, including pontoons and flotillas with a tremendous amount of troops, as we can see. It doesn't look like this is a small operation underway. And when we look at this area, here's our Azerbaijan and Armenia have been at each other's throats. Now, this is kind of a crossroads of the world again. Here is Iran down here. We have Turkey, used to be the Ottoman Empire, and going back to Nostradamus' time, Istanbul, Constantinople, and then above we have Russia, and here's Ukraine. Now, when he was talking about the Black Sea to the North Sea, you can see this is just basically going to cut right through the heart of Europe, is what he was talking about. There's the North Sea. So, this is not a good situation. And again, let's hope that timeline has changed. I do think it probably has changed because, again, so much time has passed and timelines are always changing. Edgar Casey's prophecies, while some of them are pretty accurate, some of them are way off time-wise. I mean, way off, 40, 50 years off. yet we see the starting of some of them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, there's just so many things. Time is not your friend when you're looking into the situation to say what you see, because things can be off for many, many years.
Iran is allied, obviously, with Russia, also with China, which is over here, as we can see. So one of the things you'd want if the Third World War is to evolve, as is forecast and by many different people, is you would want a free flow of your troops and goods and everything to be secured. So, this area they would want to have this totally under control. Turkey is, again, technically a NATO member, as is Greece, which is right over here. They have all sorts of islands they've been contentious about. This is Cyprus, for instance. And if we look over here, Greece-Turkey tensions remain very high as elections loom. And this is, again, another spot where things can go boom anytime. Anytime. In fact, this is one of the most likely conflicts to develop between Greece and Turkey. And they're both NATO nations. Although Turkey, I think when it really does hit the fan, they are going to be on board with China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and the like. And so also Pakistan will be allied with them as well. And, it's just fascinating to see history progress here right before our eyes. U.S. spy communication aircraft spotted flying near Russian bases in Syria. Again, the U.S. was never invited to take part in the, whatever you would want to call it, the conflict going on in Syria. As we had said before many times, there's Russian troops in Syria. There's U.S. troops in Syria. Obviously, there's Syrian troops in Syria. And there's Turkish troops in Syria. This is, in my mind, this is a country where everything could be lit afire very quick. And it would be the Middle East. U.S. HIMARS rocket launchers make surprise appearance in Syria's Deir ez-Zor. And then we also see Israel destroyed Chinese-made radar. Where? In Syria. So, again, we want to stop everything that we can as far as the death and destruction on the planet. We have to realize the powers that be solidify their control of the planet through nonstop conflict. And the funding for so much comes through the military-industrial complex. So you have an explosion and a fire broke out at a gunpowder factory. And this is, again, over in Russia. There's sabotage going on both sides. There's sabotage in the U.S. We're already in that deep into that covert warfare mode. And it's just a matter of when the whole facade of using a proxy war is gone and it's full on.
Right. And we look at this information and it's big and it's vast and it's really important to know, but we always have to keep returning back to ourselves, because how it happens to us individually is up to us.
China's CPC Congress passes resolution to boost the armed forces, speed up Taiwan reunification. So, is it possible that the Taiwan situation, could there be the invasion of Taiwan that happens, and yet we still do not have an official declaration of WW3, and perhaps the U.S. doesn't directly intervene? Maybe they do, like Ukraine. It's possible. It's very, very possible. Our own governmental military agencies had been forecasting that they expected the Taiwan invasion to happen around 2027, and now they think it might happen next year. So in other words, it could happen at any moment.
Any moment, yeah.
And here we see anti-Xi protests spread in China and worldwide as the Chinese leader begins his third term. And there was a photograph of him and North Korea's leader, smiling and everything, as North Korea's leader for life was basically congratulating China's leader for life, Remember, 45 said that, hey, that would make things a lot easier, wouldn't it? It's the thing with the people that we find that want power in this world, and they get power, they got to be corruptible. They have to have huge egos, because that's the way this world operates, and they're never going to serve the people first. Maybe, if we're lucky, we get somebody that's not a sadistic tyrant for a little while, but actually has at least a portion of a heart and there's just a little bit of compassion. That's really the most we can hope for out of the people that we see rise to power in this world.
Well, it's absolutely destined to happen that somebody like that will come into the picture. It's just, hopefully it'll be much sooner.
And again, it's a case where we are all being faced with our demons right now. This is part of the unveiling. This is part of the big apocalypse. As we see 2 killed after a Russian warplane crashes into a home, a very similar accident that happened 6 days earlier. This is in Siberia, so there's all sorts of accidents going on as well. We had seen aircraft, F-35s, made in China parts, crashing here as well. Justin Trudeau uses administrative action to ban all handgun sales in Canada. Well, there's an awful lot of reports that people have said that they've seen troops from the fine dining ware country in Canada. Again, the sellout, this has all been planned for a very long time. And it's been planned that Canada will be totally under control of, let's just say, I don't know, we're going to call them the new Axis. Are they going to be the new allies? But anyway, Russia, China, and the other countries that will be with Russia and China and Iran and North Korea. Pakistan will be there too. Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba, and we could go on and on. There's going to be quite a few. This is, again, truly going to be a world conflict situation that is festering. And of course, anything to make things easier on the powers that be when it comes to replacing the old with the new.
Right. And, as long as we look at this situation and the people, the normal people like you guys, like Mike and I, if we hold our tolerance at a certain level and say, we're not going to put up with certain things, we're going to be solid, we're going to stay right here, and you're not going to do this, and that, then we start controlling what happens around us. But we need to be firm.
Yeah, there were people that worked together to do their own thing in the Civil War. And what did it take? You had Confederate soldiers and soldiers from both sides, as well as freed slaves working together. And you do find this sometimes in conflict. You will find pockets of people that can't fire on the opposition, don't want to fire on the opposition, and just throw down their arms and take off and leave and even live in the swamps of Mississippi and Louisiana, for instance, until the war is over and they could come back out again. And, find people that are even on the opposite sides that will drop down their weapons and start to work together to just survive without becoming part of the conflict and part of the problem.
Right. There are seeds of that this can happen. We just really have to plant the seeds and allow the rest of the things to flourish and bloom.
So you see this headline, British farmers eye replacement for crops. Solar panels are more profitable than farming. They don't want anybody to farm. They don't want any private farmers. They don't want you growing your own garden. In World War II, they're called victory gardens. No, they want to control every aspect of the food, because again, control the food, control people, control the money, control people.
And the water too.
And the water, as the Mississippi's drying up. So at this point in time, it's going to take something gigantic to make Edgar Casey's prophecy of the Mississippi becoming a Mississippi Sea while it's being dried up by, those musical instruments that angels usually play, but it's not angels playing these.
Well, Mother Nature works in really, really interesting ways. Sometimes, if there's something being forced upon her later on, that might create her to do something drastic to make up for that information that has been done. It's hard for me to explain, but there is going to be a balancing of the energies at some point.
October has been a rough month for the last mile delivery robot industry as Amazon calls it quits on their 6-wheeled robot Scout for home deliveries, and FedEx is doing the same. But obviously, it doesn't mean automation is stopping. Automation is going to keep moving forward, even though we see this net zero bombshell. The world does not have enough lithium and cobalt to replace all batteries every 10 years. So says the Finnish government. Well, just wait till we see all the conflicting science come out as more and more people will break away from the official science and discover things that don't make sense, unless we have to rethink everything.
And we mean everything.
This chip can transmit all of the internet's traffic every second. That's how fast it is. 1.84 either petabits or petabits. I'm not sure. I'm not really a techie. But anyway, this is so fast, it can actually travel at twice the speed of the complete internet through one of these lines. It's just amazing, really. But again, as we go and discover the quantum world, we should be amazed.
Well, look at the human body. It's going to come out as above, so below, that our own bodies can transmit that information in a wink.
Hurricane Rosalind batters Mexico's Pacific coast, damaging winds. This is a Category 3 hurricane, and it was downgraded from a Category 4 since Saturday. It hit land 5:20 a.m. local time near Santa Cruz. And 8 to 10 inches of rainfall expected in Jalisco. We have seen less storms, but again, it only takes one big one to really make life tough for those people that get hit.
That's right.
Research reveals magma activity beneath Mount Edgecumbe, and this is a dormant volcano up in Alaska, and it does show that magma's been moving upward through the crust. Now, it's rising to about 6 miles from a depth of 12 miles. It's caused earthquakes and deformation up at the surface, but they don't say that a big one is imminent. But I do think, again, later on down the line, we are going to be facing some truly, truly legit earth changes. But again, if we're in harmony with the earth, we'll know what to do. Just like animals move out of an area before something major happens, we're meant to be that way. And in other ages, we are that way. We're not that way because we've been, fed all sorts of things from, again, fluoridated water to a diet of EMF and all these different Wi-Fi signals that scramble us energetically. Foods, again, GMO foods, and it's just a nightmare scenario that does affect our ability to feel and sense, the actual consciousness of the planet itself.
And as I'm looking at this and feeling it, it's definitely something to watch. So.
Thank you. Jumping spiders may boast cognitive ability we wish they didn't have. Yeah, they can actually tell what's animate and not animate. And to me, no surprise there, because they read into the energy fields. Now, that's something that Cindy and I do, and many of you guys do. We meet with so many people on a regular basis that can sense energy, feel energy, and see energy. It's not a unique ability. It's just something to be cultivated. And those that can't, you can. It just takes some, solid work.
Well, right. I mean, look at all of those eyes. Those eyes are there for a very good reason. No one has his 8 eyes to only be able to see one thing.
Absolutely. And does not look like the hand of God, so to speak. Yes, this is absolutely gorgeous as we look at some photos here. And this is called the Pillars of Creation. I mean, just look at what's out there now. They say this is a birthplace of stars, and it's just, a gaseous reaction. But at the same time,
Just gas. Just gas, guys.
It's just swamp gas, but it's not from Uranus.
Oh, that's good.
Consciousness knows many forms. Consciousness just is. And it can take many forms and inhabit many vehicles. But the vehicles are temporary, but consciousness is forever.
Yes.
And here we have a mysterious ancient wall, Khat Shabib, in Jordan, that is 150 kilometers long, 93 miles long, anywhere from 3 feet, and in some places it juts up 6 to 10 feet. Why is it there? Now, originally it was thought that this is something, it was first discovered back in 1948 officially. At first they thought maybe it was a few hundred years old, and then they keep pushing it backward, saying, well, maybe it's from 660 to 751 AD. No. Then they push it back farther. Maybe it's from 312 to 106 AD. Again, they keep pushing it back further. But there's so much more Horatio to this world, and there's so many things that don't make sense. And so if we do have people that think that this world was created in 6 literal days, 6,000 years ago, and we get things like these things. No, it wasn't. That's this current dark age we're talking about. When you say that, you're really saying, okay, well, the Kali Yuga, the dark age when we have been controlled by these dark controllers, began in that fundamentalist biblical perspective of 6,000 years ago or so. Yeah, that when their influence became the dominating influence upon the planet, sure, but no, people have been here all along. There's been the other civilizations that have been here millions of years ago, and they weren't us.
Right. We really have to look back and see what exactly formed our current belief system, and then take a closer look at that. And then, are we being influenced to benefit another entity?
2,000-year-old batteries discovered over here. You see clay jars, asphalt stoppers, iron rods made 2,000 years ago, been proven capable of generating more than a volt of electricity. They were found by a German archaeologist just outside of Baghdad. I've heard them called the Baghdad batteries. 2,000 years old, harnessing electricity. And then we see this depiction where they're looking, obviously, this is Egyptian. This is beneath the temple of Hathor. And it does show a very similar to a light bulb looking thing in there, but you could also depict this as a serpent, and I could see this as being some sort of Kundalini representation.
Yes, the light that illuminates.
The true big-time light, absolutely. Then we got the Great Wall of Texas, discovered in 1852, Rockwall County, Texas. Actually, the area around Dallas is very, very curious. There's a lot of stuff around Dallas, from dinosaur tracks to rock walls that appear to be 200 to 400,000 years old. Of course, science wants to say, oh, that's just a natural formation. Yeah, that's just, they just cracked that way. They hardened and they cracked, and then they hardened and they cracked in these nice, symmetrical lines.
It just seems so easy and convenient for science to say, oh, yeah, it's just that way. And then if it's not, oh, well, sorry, we're wrong. Sorry.
It includes archways, linteled portals, and square openings that resemble windows. Yeah, oh, sure, it's natural, yeah. Yeah, there's a bridge for sale in Brooklyn.
Yeah, let's go get it.
1.8 billion-year-old nuclear reactor. In 1972, a French factory imported uranium ore from Oklo in Africa's Gabon Republic. The uranium had already been extracted. They found the site of origin to have apparently functioned as a large-scale nuclear reactor that came into being 1.8 billion years ago. Was in operation for some 500,000 years. Explain that one.
I can't.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much of this, and then we have the Piri Reis map from 1513 that shows the coastline of Antarctica very clearly and pretty spot on. The only problem is we're told that it was covered in ice at that time, so how did they know?
I don't know, all these minor details.
Yeah, but we also have maps of California and Nevada that show an inland sea that goes right up to where we owned 1 acre of desert.
Yep.
That was 200 plus miles away from the coast. And yet we found sponge, we found coral, we found clams, all in desert that supposedly wasn't underwater for, tens of thousands of years. But to me, it seemed like I might believe a couple hundred years. Well, the Native Americans talk about that too. 2,000-year-old earthquake detector. This is from China as well. There's so many things. How about 150,000-year-old pipes that are radioactive? 150,000-year-old pipes in China that are radioactive. And then we have this anti-Kythera mechanism, which we talked about in a couple videos that are maybe 3-4 years old. This was built by the Greeks about 150 BC, able to calculate astronomical changes with great precision. Did they get this knowledge from Atlantis? Perhaps.
Yes, perhaps, huh?
How about a drill bit in coal? This was buried in a bed of clay mixed with boulders about 7 foot thick and in Scotland. What's a drill bit doing in there? Because the Earth's core is said to have been formed hundreds of millions of years ago. So who was drilling all that time ago?
Just a few more minor details is all.
Yeah, nothing to see here.
No, nothing.
The Earth was created in 6 days, 6,000 years ago. Yeah, this is all just... You're getting very sleepy. You're getting very sleepy.
Just accept it and hush.
Yes. Just believe the current science.
Yes.
Don't matter the evidence. 2.8 billion year old spheres. South Africa, but also in many other places around the globe we found these things. It's just amazing to comprehend. We have the Iron Pillar of Delhi. Now this is at least 1,500 years old, could be older. It's rust-free. It's iron. It's of astounding purity, 99.72% iron. And it's rust-free. In modern times, raw iron has been made with a purity of 99.8%, but it contains manganese and sulfur, 2 ingredients absent in the pillar. It was made at least 400 years before the largest known foundry of the world could have produced it. At least. And then we have a Viking sword from 1000 AD that shows technology that we currently think could only be done about 1800 AD. So how did they do that? As well as a 100 million year old hammer, again, in Texas, London, Texas. And it was found in rock that's 100 million years old. Now, yeah, there could be problems with dating of things as well, absolutely. But the evidence for great technology, much more advanced than what we have now, is all over the world. It's all over the world. We must be wanting to stick our heads in the sand and do the la 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 la, I can't hear you because you're going to blow my belief system. You're going to blow my paradigm, and I can't handle that.
Right. Well, I know that we and everyone who's listening, we don't want to stick our head in the sand. I think we would be quite fascinated if they would teach us these things in school about the hows and the whys of everything. Then maybe our ears would open because we would know that it's true.
And this has been named Adam's Bridge, just to show you how, again, everything gets twisted into a Abrahamic Judeo-Christian Islamic perspective, when this was known originally as Rama's Bridge. And according to the ancient Vedic legends, King Rama built a bridge between India and Sri Lanka more than 1 million years ago. Well, no, again, that could be debated. There's a lot of scholars that would say that was about 5,000, maybe 5,500 to 6,000 BC, so more like around 7,000 years ago. And it was it was created by what we would view today as an army of big feet.
Huh, how about that?
Yeah, army of Sasquatch basically created this, which we can see this bridge. This is massive in scope. This is massive in scope. And again, it gets renamed Adams after the whole Adam and Eve thing. But again, the Adam and Eve and all those stories, they're all taken from older stories. So if we're calling Noah instead of Utnapishtim, or one of the more ancient names of that story, that was retold time and time again, we're going by the controller's own language, because again, they're always, 65% of the world thinks and views of everything through an Abrahamic lens. So when we're thinking Adam and Eve, instead of looking at the Sumerian legends, or even going back farther from other sources, it's a misunderstanding that is intentional, because they don't want us uncovering the truth.
No, I mean, it wouldn't benefit them. It wouldn't benefit their system, their world system that they have put into place. And they've taken a lot of effort to make sure that we all have this similar belief system. And no matter how many times you look at it, it's always going to show that it benefits them, and it really limits our consciousness.
So the former director of the Geological Survey of India studied core samples from the bridge. He was puzzled by the appearance of boulders on top of a marine sand layer and surmised that boulders must have been artificially placed there. Well, that's what the story says. The purpose was to lead an army over there to fight the Asura king, to allow the forces of light, the devas, the good guys, basically the true white hats, of which that's all been distorted too, over to fight what we would call the Asuras, which are more the demonic beings. Now the difference between the devas and the Asuras is the devas come to us as these beings more typically of a light body variety in the golden age, when we ourselves are up in a 5D reality. And so these beings are 5D and above, and they can interact with us freely to where we could actually see them. Most people could see them as an energy pattern and get information and learning from them. Now, the Asuras, when they came, they just plopped themselves down, took over a country, set themselves up as God, and ruled, and took the best of the food. They took for wives whoever they wanted. Ooh, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, that's these Anunnakian forces that we're talking about, and this is the conflict that evolved in the Bronze Age. Mostly, you had the open warfare going on, but the infiltration started actually in the Silver Age. And when you get to the Kali Yuga, we're in darkness. We don't understand all of this. We don't understand the battles of the gods that we used to see happening, raging in the skies over us. We don't understand that anymore. It's just become myths and legends, but they're real.
Mm-hmm. But over time, information keeps sneaking out, and it keeps... it just keeps sneaking out, and it seeps into our consciousness, and then we start to ask questions, and our understanding is having a desire to expand. So we are expansive beings, and once we get a little taste of this, it's like, you can't just stop there. No, you have to uncover the mother lode. You want to know everything. And this kind of expansion, that's what happens when you're going through an awakening. It's like you are so thirsty for information. You're just hungry for the truth. And sometimes going after that truth doesn't feel so good, but that's okay. You reach a point where you just want to know the truth.
And we also have a 500,000-year-old object that looks surprisingly like a spark plug inside a geode that's almost 500,000 years old. And then we have the Bimini Wall, which was made sometime, they say, 12,000, 19,000 years ago. Again, this coincides perfectly with the Younger Dryas event and extinction, where we did basically lose what we called Atlantis. just to show you what would we do if we were not actively working in this world to make the controllers rich and to, basically serve them, because that's, again, what we're doing here in this world. We can do artwork, and I'm just going to kind of roll through this and think of the creativity that would be unleashed on the world if you didn't have to struggle to make a living. If you can just focus your energy on becoming the best at whatever makes you excited. I mean, look at the talent here. I mean, that thing looks so 3D, doesn't it? I mean, wow. The possibilities are endless. And as soon as we shed ourselves of these controllers, then we can manifest that.
Yes, we can.
So guys, as always, thanks for your support over on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Ko-Fi, you could do a one-time donation to support the channel, or monthly just by changing the number of coffees. Do check out Medicinal Foods. They really do have a lot of good stuff to boost your immune system, help with detoxing, and some just plain old yummy things in there as well, like chocolate-covered macadamia nuts. Again, good stuff. As always, may you be blessed by the true creator of this universe. Namaste and God bless.
Namaste.